Again, 7:23 on a Wednesday edition of Dub Job Boxing Podcast as we welcome in the Hall of Fame promoter, Russell Peltz. Russell, Rich Quinones, Rob Scott, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys?
We are doing well. Great to catch up with you. And I'll tell you, you keep turning around some really good local shows, local fighters on display in Philadelphia over the last several months, if you will. And I think it's great when you get these young kids to really go at it, especially guys that had undefeated records. They're not afraid to fight themselves. But first and foremost, your takeaway, your thoughts on the Mansour and Kaufman fight.
I wish I had known it was their plan to box in the earlier part of the fight. I wouldn't have been as frustrated as I was watching Amir give away some rounds, but he certainly came on when I least expected him to, and he won the fight. Whether he won it by a hair or not, he won the fight. Like I always say, the Yankees don't have to win 10-2. They only have to win 2-1.
Right.
It's still a win.
Yeah.
So that's what counts. He got the win, and he needed it.
Well, with that win, it went the distance, and a lot of fighters aren't clamoring to fight Amir Mansour. Tell us what do you think that is going to take, and put your promotional hat on. What is it going to take for Amir to basically lure these fighters into a fight before his clock, before the hourglass runs out of his clock?
It's going to take, probably going to take a spot in which there's no other alternative. On one hand, you could say that they should fight Amir soon because they're running out of quality challengers, and they too know that he's not going to be around forever. So why not grab him now? That's one way of looking at it. It's easy to say that. The only thing certain in boxing is that nothing is certain. So to say that by winning that fight, he's going to get a title shot, that's, we're dreaming. We're dreaming. He'll get a title shot if they want to fight him. He's not going to be the mandatory anytime soon. By the time he's the mandatory, he'll probably be approaching retirement age. So we just have to hope that we can fill a void where there's nobody else around there. And you know what? It's not just about fighting for the title. It's about making money. Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti fought each other 3 times, and there wasn't a single title on the line.
That's right. That's right.
And they made a lot of money.
Yep.
So I'm more interested in the money than I am in, of course, there's more money in the title, but you never know what's out there, what's going to happen.
Speaking of some bigger opportunities down the road, Jason Sosa against Lomachenko, I give him all the credit in the world for wanting to take this fight. And the first thing that stands out when I think of Jason Sosa, to me, kind of an inauspicious start to his career as a fighter. Didn't have a lot of amateur fights. I think only had 3, maybe 4 amateur fights. So again, he goes in as a huge underdog. But you can't measure a guy's heart. You can't take away from that. And I think it seems as though unless you're on the Philly, the East Coast boxing circuit like we are, to me, one of the biggest advantages. I go to his trainer in Chino Rivas and what he's been able to do with this kid over the last several years. I mean, he is poised and focused. And look, I give him a puncher's chance whether he wins or not, but I would not sleep on Sosa going into this fight.
Listen, I've been told by close friends of mine, people involved in the promotion, to quote them exactly, Jason Sosa will not win 1 minute of 1 round. We'll see what's going to happen. They criticize guys like Salido and Corrales for not taking the fight, and then they jump all over Sosa for agreeing to it, saying he has no chance. So, as I've often said, if there were as many experts in boxing as people who claim to be experts, boxing would be in a much better spot than it's in right now. The only thing I can say is that Jason Sosa has a better chance of beating Lomachenko on April 8th than anybody else does because he's going to be in there with him, and he's going to try, and he's going to give it his all. And he's a big underdog, so what? Jason Sosa wants these kind of fights. If more fighters had Jason Sosa's mental outlook on boxing, boxing would be in a much better place.
And just to piggyback on that real quick, and I know Rob wanted to jump in here. Listen, you go to the Fortuna fight, and that's a career-defining fight. Now, you pull off an upset of all upsets, that's a career-making fight. So, again, I hate to use the adage, you got the puncher's chance, but I give him credit. It's a bigger purse, it's a bigger payday, it's a bigger opportunity. Good, why not? I mean, you can't fault somebody for that. That's ridiculous. And to criticize him for taking a fight, I also think is ridiculous.
People don't understand that when you become champion, your options are limited. We had two other options for this time. We had to either go to Panama with no television and fight Jezreel Corrales in a purse bid in which Jason would have gotten 25% of the money bid and Corrales would have gotten 75% because no American TV network was interested. So we'd be paid in pesos in the dark, and maybe we'd make 30 or 40 grand. Our only other option, according to the WBA, was to fight a rematch with Fortuna, which is no walk in the park, for a lot less money than we're getting to fight Lomachenko. So from a financial aspect, it was not even a question. But people don't understand that because people have told me, "Oh, you're selling him down the river. He has no chance." This is from people that really don't have a clue of what's going on in the business. If I had my druthers, what I really would have wanted to do after the Stephen Smith fight, and I never really discussed this with Jason or his trainer, was I would have wanted to rent one of those Dolly Parton-like buses and driven around the country and fought a series of non-title fights against local yokels. 7 grand here, 8 grand there, 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever it is, because you're talking about a kid with 3 amateur fights.
Yep.
And I thought just to keep him busy. But every time you want to do that, the WBA charges you $20,000 just for them to rule on whether or not you can do that. So what choice do you have? You have none.
Russ, Rich and I, we were just talking about Triple G, and we were talking about basically his ups and downs, or shall I say his good qualities, and also his Achilles heel. When you're talking about Lomachenko, who everybody is very, very high on him right now, and I've worked a couple of his fights where, I have to admit that I walked away impressed. What do you think is his Achilles heel? What type of fighter and what type of fighter would a fighter have to fight in order to beat a person like him?
You have to knock him out. Nobody's going to beat Lomachenko by decision. Sosa can punch. I don't think he's not afraid. He's up for the challenge. I mean, the hype today is so incredible. I tell people in all sports, if Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell were playing basketball today, we'd be building monuments to them as big as the Empire State Building.
Because everyone's a prisoner. They're prisoner of the moment.
Everybody's the greatest fighter who ever lived. How do you make a statement that Lomachenko is the best technical fighter of the last 50 years? Who's even thinking before they say things like that?
Exactly.
He's a good fighter, but one punch. Listen, Sosa was so far behind in China. He didn't lose focus. He only could win by knockout, and that's what he did. One punch can turn a fight around. I mean, it's
because
you gotta take a shot.
Yeah, but Russell, they're looking at a fighter who had 397 amateur fights, 396 and 1, and a fighter that had 3 Emmys. So you're right, and they're looking at what he's done in just 7-8 fights already, and having an opportunity, his first pro fight, to fight for a title. It's boxing, right? Everyone's an expert,
The best fighter I think the best fighter I ever had under contract was Jeff Chandler, the Hall of Fame bantamweight champ.
Yep.
He had 2 amateur fights. He had one on a Friday and one on a Monday, and then he turned pro. So, sometimes having 400 amateur fights,
hurt you.
Beats you down.
That's right.
Beats your legs down.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Everybody, most Americans have only seen Jason Sosa with Nicholas Walters.
Yep.
And whether he deserved the draw or not, he took advantage of the draw, and he knew after that fight that he could hang with the best at 130. So he took advantage of it and went on and won the title and defended it. And now he's got more money than he's ever dreamed of making in a single night.
Russell, two quickies from me, just kind of back to back. How about we're seeing some of these young fighters now, some of the shows that you're putting on, Johan, all you guys in Philadelphia, the younger fighters having an opportunity to go back and forth, the Sparrows and the Bergens of the world, to see these guys, whether it's a 6 or 8 rounder. Talk about that, and it seems like a little more boom with some of these young fighters having an opportunity to fight at the 2300 arena. And then how about your thoughts for the induction in May, the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame?
My biggest critics say of me that I promote for the fans, not for the fighters. And I'm proud of that, because people are paying $75 for ringside, 50, 40, 100. You go to a movie and you pay $10, that's a lot of money. You got to entertain people. You can't promote shows in which the A side, the alleged red corner wins every fight, or the B corner, or the promoter's fighter wins every round. In the old days, before promoters signed a zillion fighters like they do today, promoters bid on the best fights, and whoever bid the most money got the best fight and drew the best fans, and that's how you made your money. Today, you want to they all want to get their fighters to 25-0 and hope that they can get on HBO. But you've got about as much chance on getting on HBO as every high school player has of getting a scholarship to play college basketball, or every college basketball player has a shot to be in the NBA. It's a very small pool. You've got to know what you've got, and you have to promote them accordingly. And when people are paying that kind of money, they deserve to be entertained, and that's what we've decided to do. Most of the fighters I've had over the years, I released or left. I think I only have maybe 3 or 4 fighters under contract, so I don't have all those obligations, and I can just go and do what I did years ago, just make competitive fights.
Yeah.
That's what promoters are supposed to do. Today, promoters are managers. They don't promote fights. They promote fighters, and there's a big difference.
Yeah.
As far as the Atlantic City Hall of Fame, listen, I'm honored to be in the inaugural class. Whether I deserve it or not, I don't know. There's people like Dan Duva and Bob Arum that certainly should have been in the inaugural class. But, there'll be other years to follow. It's an honor, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Russ, due to the fact that we are in Atlantic City, give us, and very quickly, if you will, I'm sorry about that, but very quickly, what do you think that will be the breath that will bring Atlantic City boxing back?
Well, Atlantic City has to come back first, and the casinos have to start thinking like promoters instead of thinking like accountants. They think like accountants today because they're always trying to cut corners and cut the costs. What they have to do is go out and promote themselves and promote the fights. Boxing helped make Atlantic City in the early 80s when we had like 150 or 160 shows in 1 year in Atlantic City, like in 82 or 83. Today, you're lucky to have 20 or 25 shows in the whole state of New Jersey. The Trop ran every Tuesday night. Yep. I was at the Sands for years. I must have promoted at a half a dozen casinos down there. But they don't think like that. They're all looking to cut costs rather than to boost income. That's the problem.
Yep. We're seeing it, and hopefully we see a little more growth. Russell, we appreciate the extended time as always, and always good to catch up. Congrats on the induction in the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Keep it going with all those local cards, and certainly we look forward to Sosa and Lomachenko in April. Appreciate a couple moments.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
All right, you got it.
Have a good one.
All right, Russell Peltz, we're up against a break. Got to take a quickie timeout. We'll come back quickly on the other side. We'll hopefully track down Amir Mansour and get his thoughts, and then we'll kind of recap some of the good stuff from Russell Peltz. And, it should be interesting. Anytime you get Amir Mansour on the air, he's got some good stuff to say. So we'll take it up to 8 o'clock on a Wednesday.